Lalo lalo ke auli o ka lewa. Helele ka ua nui ma ka aina. Moala a enei ka pua le hua. Ohu ohu kana hele I nā pu'olu ula ula. Ola ka honua. Ola ka leho leho o ka honua. E ola mau e. That was a recitation of a Hawaiian chant. And the Hawaiian chant was written by John Kaimikawa. John Kaimikawa was an extremely spiritual guy, great teacher who sadly passed away very early. And he wrote that chant for the Huna group that I go to in Hawaii. So what it means is the dark clouds hang low over the land and we cannot see. The great rain falls on the land, and the lehua flower, it blossoms, and the great bundles, the great red bundles of the lehua blossom are with us. Life to the earth, life to the people on the earth, life to us all. It's a chant that can be used as a welcome. It's a chant that can be used as a cleansing, and is a chant that can be used as a grieving, because it cleansing, it's all about bringing in the rain and having the flowers bloom. In terms of the welcome, it's the joy that your presence brings, and that joy causes the flowers of our happiness to bloom. And as a chant for passing, which I used, some friends asked me to do some chanting when they scattered their son's ashes. This was one that I used because obviously it's talking about the rain, and rain can be like tears. The Hawaiian language is very, very simple. On one level, it's got only 7 consonants and 5 vowels, so that's 12 letters. But they have to do a lot of work. So any Hawaiian is very, very heavily layered with lots and lots of different meaning. So it's not just the context that you need to know, it's the word. So for instance, a word like ahi means fire, but it also means tuna. So you need to know the context to know exactly what people are talking about. So I'd like to welcome you very much to this introduction to Huna. This is a first for me. I have done a Google Hangout before, but I've not talked about Huna in a Google Hangout. Huna for me is something very precious, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why it's precious and how I got into it and why I've become a teacher of it. And then I'm going to talk to you about what it is and take you through a couple of processes that you can use for yourself after the video's over. And yeah, there will be a replay available for you. So let's begin at the very beginning. Oops, a mere piece has just dropped out, which is never a good thing. Let's begin at the very beginning. The very beginning is that years ago, when I was a child, I was always searching. I always wanted to be, I was desperately curious about philosophy. I was a terrible geek. I wanted my dad to teach me Latin because I was interested in words. I wanted to learn philosophy. I was interested in all these things. And my family were vicars and bishops and organists. And so we'd sit around the table and we'd talk about religion and philosophy and spirituality. So I always had a kind of interest in it. I also had an interest in herbal healing and natural remedies. My mum was a nurse, and she was a nurse at the time when before penicillin. So she'd talk about pouring honey into a wound to make it, to help it heal, or using maggots on gangrene. And as a kid, I used to bite my nails and they'd go septic, and she'd put a bread poultice on. So she was very much into using the old remedies wherever possible. So I've always had that interest in spirituality and in healing in a different way. So when I got into depression, which I did back in the 90s, I was always looking for a new way that wasn't medically defined of helping myself. I wanted to get out of it, but I didn't want to use the medical process. So one of the things that I did was I looked around, and I got into NLP. I discovered NLP. Now, NLP gives you a lot of control over your mind, but it doesn't necessarily give you access to spirit. And I'd spent my 20s really searching. I felt there was more. I felt there was something, but I didn't know what I was looking for, and I certainly didn't know where to find it. So with NLP, the guy who taught me NLP, who was a guy called David Shepard, and his teacher, Tad James, David introduced me, and was the first to introduce me to the concept of Huna. And I became really intrigued. I mean, I'd gone to these NLP trainings expecting to find out how to control my mind, deal with my depression. And suddenly there was this guy talking about this spiritual tradition in Hawaii. Now, I'm a traveler. I love to travel. And I'd been to the Pacific, and I'd never actually got to Hawaii. And I thought, this could be interesting, tax deductible. Hawaii, never been there. Yeah, I quite fancy this. And that was the reason that I ever went there in the first place. It wasn't because I thought it was going to sort me out on a spiritual level. It wasn't because I was really looking, consciously anyway, for any great truths. It wasn't for any of those reasons. It was, I fancied Hawaii. It was potentially a tax-deductible break, and it just seemed really good. And I showed up, and I spent 10 days absolutely immersing myself in everything that was on offer. And everything that was on offer, it encompassed a whole breadth of things. We learned to chant, just as I recited a chant, but we actually learned to chant with putting the chant into it. We learned to dance. We learned to dance traditional hula. Not well. I mean, there's only so much they can teach you in 5 days when you've never done it before and you're of a certain age. But we learned to dance the hula. We met some great teachers. We were given the opportunity to meet some really leading Hawaiian thinkers. And we also had the opportunity to learn how to work with the elements. We did practical modern huna. We threw clay at walls. We burnt candles and blew them out. We did all sorts of things to learn how to work with the spiritual energy. And for me, at that time, at that point where I was in my life, the most important things I learned were some techniques for spiritual release. So releasing the limiting decisions, the baggage, the anxieties that were trapping me and holding me back, and also Hooponopono. Now, if anybody's heard of anything to do with Huna, they've heard of Hooponopono. It was made much more aware by Joe Vitale. Hooponopono is a forgiveness process, and I'll talk more about it a bit later on. Hooponopono is an amazing technique for releasing the old bonds to old relationships, for clearing out all the crap, basically. So I learned Hooponopono. And when I left after the end of 10 days, I had a new tool bag. I had a tool bag of very fast processes for spiritual and emotional release. And I had this tool, Hooponopono. And I came back to the UK and I started to use them. And the more I used them, the more my depression started to fall away. And the more pieces of my life started to fall into place. I thought I'd go back one more time. There was one more thing that I wanted to learn, and it was working with therapeutai, healing guides, let's say. And I thought, yeah, I could do with a few healing guides. So I was going to go back one more time. It was going to be, that was it. That was going to be the last time. So a year later, a year after I'd been back, I went for my second time to build the connection and learn how to work with my healing guides. Learning how to work with my healing guides, I then became able to do so much more for myself and start to work with other people, which was absolutely amazing. I could start to use these processes with other people. Very powerful. But that was it. I wasn't going to go back. I was done. And then somehow, and I don't know how this happened, I found myself going back a third time. And the third time I went back, I learned more things and new things. And then I found myself going back a fourth time. You kind of get the drift. Each time, that was it. I was not going to go back. I was done. Because, you know, I live in UK. Why would I trek halfway around the planet twice a year in order to develop myself spiritually when there are so many other traditions around the world that are so much closer to home? I mean, it's crazy. But there was something that called me, something, and I didn't know what it was. So I kept going back. After a while, I started to teach it a little, cautiously, nervously, the feeling of, well, who am I to be teaching this? But I started to teach it a little. And I found that people were interested, but this is before The Secret came out. And this, you know, people have become much more spiritually open in the last 10 years. The Secret's been amazing in promoting that. There are things I could say about that film, The Secret, and the book, The Secret, but in terms of opening people's eyes to what's possible, they've done a great job. And then in 2005, I was given the opportunity to actually start teaching in Hawaii. So since 2005, I've been teaching in Hawaii. And I've been really encouraged by my teacher, Matt James, and by all my Huna buddies, and I know some of my Huna buddies are watching, and thank you. But really encouraged by Matt to step out and start teaching it over here indeed, because Huna has so many very precious kernels of knowledge that they're important, that they can really help people. They can help people who are, like me, who are depressed. They can help you if you're just looking for a purpose. They can help you if you're feeling a bit lost. They can help you if you're getting stuck. They're precious and they should be out there. So this is my first step in really putting it out there on the UK side of the planet, on the European side of the planet. So that's how I came to study Huna. Oh, and along the way I got myself a PhD in spirituality and leadership. And one of the things that I did as part of that was to go very deep into Huna. So my PhD is in spirituality and leadership, but really it's about Huna and leadership. So I've studied it in some depth. So, all that being said, let's look now at what Huna is all about and why it's of interest, and some techniques that you can take away with you at the end of this. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm going to take a glass of water. Sorry about that. Okay, so share my screen. There we go. Screen share. This takes this takes a little moment with Google, so you're going to have to bear with me while I let that play. Oops, no, that doesn't work. Sorry about that. Screen share. Okay, this. Yay, screen. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Some strange things will happen as they do, and now let me get my slides up for you, because one of the things that I have realized with Google Hangouts is it's all very well for you to sit and stare at my face, but it becomes much more fun when you get to sit and look at a few slides. So, introduction to Huna. The disadvantage of this is I can't see what's going on the Hangout itself, but never mind. There is a saying, "Ohe pau ko ike iko halau." Think not that all wisdom is in your school. It's an ancient Hawaiian saying, and it used to be up on the above the halau, the school, the hula school of Uncle George Naope. I'll talk a bit more about Uncle George in a minute. I think this is really, really important because it says several things. Firstly, it says that I can't possibly know everything about Huna, and I can't possibly teach you everything about Huna. So I know a lot, but I don't know everything. But the other thing is, Huna is it's a very tolerant approach to spirituality. It accepts the possibility of other ways of thinking. John Kaimikawa, who I mentioned earlier, and I'll talk a bit more about in a moment, he was a practicing Mormon. And in fact, the Mormon church at one point asked him to stop teaching Huna and working with Huna, to which his answer was, "Huna makes me a better Christian." So Huna is a spiritual tradition that can coexist alongside other traditions. It's not exclusive. And you will come across many different approaches to Huna. The one that I know, the one that I practice, the one I teach is an approach. It's not the approach. There are others. There are many others. And mine's not right and others are wrong, or others aren't right and mine's wrong. It's just that there are many different approaches. There are many different wisdoms, and they're in different schools. So this is Uncle George Naope. His Hawaiian name, George Lanakila Keiki Ahiali'i Naope, was given to him by his grandmother before he was born. That's a Hawaiian tradition, and an elder will, either before the birth or at the time of the birth, will give a name, and it's almost like channeling a name for the child. And Uncle George himself translated this as the light that would lead the way, or the protector of the things of Hawaii. Now, Uncle George was the founder of the Merry Monarch Festival, which was a Hawaiian cultural festival. Celebrates the hula, which is the traditional dance of Hawaii. And it also celebrates modern hula, which is the kind of thing that you see on TV and at Waikiki. Uncle George was a national treasure, and he was a hula master. He was a master of masters, a lawyer. He was incredibly, incredibly knowledgeable about the Hawaiian culture. He was the one who had that saying above his school, "Think not that all wisdom is in your school." He understood this, and a great teacher. Sadly no longer with us. Great entertainer, wicked sense of humor. That's Uncle George. So let's talk a little bit about Hawaii. Hawaii, we think of Hawaii or Hawaii as the name of the place, but it's not just a place. Hawaiian words can be split down into the syllables, and each syllable has its own meaning. So Hawaii, ha means breath, vai means water or mana, energy, life force, and I means supreme. So Hawaii is the supreme life force that rides on the breath. They say that when Captain Cook turned up in Hawaii, he'd been through Polynesia, he'd been to Tahiti and other places. So he or his people, they'd learnt the Polynesian languages. They had some familiarity with Polynesian languages. So when they got to Hawaii, and Hawaiian is a Polynesian language, they had a way of communicating with the people they met. And they said to people, it is said, they said to people, "So what is this place?" And people said, "Hawaii." So they went, "Oh, okay, it's Hawaii." And that's how the name came. But for the Hawaiians, Hawaii wasn't just a place name. It meant supreme life force riding on the breath. And the picture you see there, that is a picture of King David Kalakaua bathing pond. Very, very sacred place for the Hawaiians, and a beautiful, beautiful place. We used to have all our trainings in a hotel that overlooked that pond, and you could stare out of the window and look at the pond. It's all now being restored back into a national park, which is absolutely brilliant. That is Hawaii. So what we'll cover, we're going to look at why Huna. We're going to look what is Huna, what does it include, I'm going to talk about the lineage where the Huna that I have learned comes from, and it comes from more than one source. I'm going to talk about the relationship between mind, body, and spirit. Huna has a lot to say about the mind-body-spirit relationship. I'm going to teach you a breathing technique and a meditation technique, and we'll talk a little bit about what else if you want more information. So let's look at why Huna. There are many, many reasons why. I love the fact that the Huna that I'm learning comes from an unbroken lineage. It's an unbroken lineage going back at least 29 generations. Now, be conservative, 29 generations, say a generation's 20 years, that's getting on for 600 years. And the lineage can be traced all the way back for 600 years. So that knowledge has come in a constant stream. It goes back a long way and connects with the ancient wisdom. Huna has given me the ability to live with purpose. It's given me the ability to connect with my purpose. When I went in there, I had absolutely no idea that I even had a purpose. And it's enabled me to identify my purpose, connect with it, develop it, and now to start to live it. Because for a long time I dodged and I didn't. Huna helps you fill the void. I think any spiritual tradition can do this. What I mean by filling the void, it's very easy to, we get very involved in TV, we get involved in drinking, we get involved in online stuff, in shopping. And very often it's just a way of filling the void because we feel an emptiness, we feel a searching, we feel a something, but we don't know what it is. So the spiritual connection, the joy of the spiritual connection that comes with Huna is very powerful for filling the void. Finding connections. I've built some wonderful connections through Huna with my Huna buddies, and although we're scattered across the planet, literally, we stay in touch, and thank God for the internet. It's a great way to be able to do that. But it's not just about finding connections with individuals. It's about finding connections about the meaning of things, why things happen as they do. Huna has many explanations for why things happen, which modern science is only just now beginning to reveal. Discovering what really inspires you, really getting in touch with that sense of purpose. And Huna is a complete system. I'll talk a little bit more about what that covers in a minute, but it really does. It covers the whole thing from spiritual philosophy right through to energy work, through the construction of the universe, how the universe is put together. There's astrology, there's numerology, there's meditation, there's many, many different parts to this system. And you can find parallels with Huna in traditions across the planet. Native American traditions, Aboriginal traditions, the Western Hermetic magic tradition, Buddhism, Christianity, Sufism, Islam, Sufism being the more esoteric form of Islam. Any tradition that you care to think of, you will find parallels and connections with Huna. So what is Huna? This is a quote from Matt James, who is my teacher. Matt says Huna's the modern or Western label given to the ancient healing and spiritual shamanism of ancient Hawaii, teachings that were once secret and carefully guarded. It is a modern term. The ancient Hawaiians never called it Huna. And teachers that I've talked to, Uncle George and Aope, Uncle George's sister, Auntie Bernie, they're happy with the term because the teachings were once secret. And now is the time for them to come out into the open and become known. If you are interested in spiritual growth, if you're interested in Hooponopono, if you're interested in personal empowerment, or just that sense of expanding your awareness, your connection with spirit, then the more that you get in touch with the consciousness, the more that you get in touch with even a very surface level of Huna or spiritual traditions like Huna, it will start to awaken something inside you. It might be that it awakens the purpose. It might be that it awakens a connection with something bigger. But it will awaken something inside of you. So let's talk about the science of Huna. Now this comes from a kahuna in the 1850s, kapihe. E iho ana o luna, e pi'i ana o lalo, e hui ana na moko, e ku ana kapaya. And the translation is quite long because, as I explained at the beginning, Hawaiian words have many layers, or Hawaiian phrases has many layers. So the translation goes, bring down that which is above by means of the light. To ascend, take from the darkness into the light that which is below by means of the light. This will transform the spiritual energy as it flows from the source and integrates all the islands inside you, giving peace. This will affect you profoundly and change your life, bringing illumination, and you'll feel the delightful supreme fire. So it's talking about bringing down light or energy from source, bringing it down into manifestation, onto the physical level. And in order to evolve, to develop spiritually, using that energy, transforming that energy, so that you bring together all the parts of you, all the conflicts inside of you, you resolve them, which brings you peace. It changes your life, it brings illumination and insight, and it brings that fire, that joy that comes when you have a great spiritual connection. Another key aspect or key thought in Huna is the idea of correspondence, as above, so below. It's not unique to Huna. One of the most famous writings on the law of correspondence was the Emerald Tablet, which dates back to about 1500, but it's from the Western tradition, which says that which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above. So whatever we see in the universe is reflected in ourselves. We reflect the universe, and at one level, the universe reflects us. Now, this is an interesting one, because if you look at what modern quantum physics is doing in particular, the whole concept of the holographic universe, that the universe is actually a hologram, and we are a hologram of the universe. Carl Pribram suggested that the human being is a hologram of God, which I think is an absolutely stunning concept. So, as above, so below. Another thing that is important in Hawaiian is words. Hawaiians are very careful with their words. As I say, the words do double duty, so they have to be. They think before they speak. They breathe before they speak. They consider before they speak. There's a saying, I ka olelo no ka ola, I ka olelo no ka make. In the word there is life, in the word there is death. Our words represent the thoughts that we hold in our mind. We can think things into being. If you're into manifestation in any way, you know this. You know that in order to manifest, you need to think it, you need to get it very clear, and it becomes a reality. When we speak our words, we create. And when we speak our words, we can also uncreate. In the word there's life, in the word there is death. And the person who taught me this saying was John Kaimikawa. So I think it's time to introduce you to what John Kaimikawa had to say about connection and something that we call pono. Pono in Hawaiian means, and you hear it in Hooponopono, but pono in Hawaiian means right, not right as in right and wrong, but right as in centered, congruent, calm, at one, connected. And John Kaimikawa said that there are three things that we need to be at one with. We need to be at one with ourselves, so myself down in the bottom corner. I need to know who I am, I need to be in touch with who I am, and I need to be convinced by who I am. I put my ego aside, stop getting taken off on sidelines. When I'm pono with myself, when I'm at peace with myself, when I'm right with myself, then I can also be right with the aina. The aina is the land, but it's not just the land, it's everything on the land, the people on the land, the animals, the plant, everything. It's the earth in its totality. And the aina, we need to be connected and pono, at one with, feeling right with the land and everything that goes with it. And we also, when we really are centered and balanced, we also have that, we feel we're pono with Keaku, with God, or God, source, higher spirit, whatever that thing is that you think of as being higher than us or beyond. It could be the universe. It could be the collective. It could be the collective unconscious, higher self, higher connection. All those words may be used. So that's pono. Being pono, what it means is you know who you are. You trust your gut. You know your path. You know how to fill the void, not with TV and not with online shopping and playing Candy Crush or Farmville or whatever the current thing on Facebook is, but you have other ways of filling the void with spirit and connection. And you find your big why, the thing that motivates you, the thing that takes you through life, gives you a reason for living, and gives you a reason for living in a fully healthy way, embracing everything about life. So that's being pono. And this is John Kayumikawa, great spiritual teacher, a musician, if you ever heard Is Somewhere Over the Rainbow, in that kind of tradition, a great chanter, a Hawaiian cultural expert. He learnt from a very early age the chants from the island of Molokai, which is where he was from. And he, as I said, he was a Mormon, but he was also a spiritual leader within the Hawaiian community. Sadly passed away a few years ago. So I mentioned earlier that Huna is a complete system. What did I mean by that? Well, it's a spiritual philosophy. The relationship with the universe, I've just talked about pono. The relationship with ourselves, both internally, us, and externally, so the as above, so below. Healing techniques, loads of different healing techniques. On one level, there's the herbal healing, if you like, the physical healing. And certainly, John Kayumikawa used to tell us of his aunt, who was a laukahea. She was a faith healer and could heal broken bones by chanting and bringing in energy. That's part of the Huna tradition. Also, spiritual release. So healing techniques to release emotional baggage, to release anxiety, doubt, negative emotions, the things that trap us and bind us. The Hawaiians talk of the black bags. So when we have a bad experience, something happens to us, but it's not time to express the emotion. So, for example, you're going into a presentation and suddenly something from your past comes out, the time when you were bullied at school, something that you really don't want to come up just as you're walking into a presentation. So rather than deal with it there and then, what you do is you open up a little black bag and you pop all the emotion into the little black bag, and you pop the little black bag somewhere in your body. And from time to time, your unconscious mind opens up that little black bag and goes, hello, do you want to deal with this? It's time. And you go, no, 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 no. And you put it back in the black bag. And each time you do that, the black bag grows. And they grow bigger and bigger. And it comes a point at some point where you need to deal with them. Because if you don't deal with them, you won't move on. You'll stay stuck. So healing techniques, the black bag, spiritual release. Huna has a powerful array of those. And it's something that I teach on the weekends that I run in the UK, and also when I'm teaching in Hawaii itself. Hooponopono. Hooponopono, as I say, people have heard of Hooponopono. It's been made popular by Joe Vitale. Hooponopono means to make right. Ho'o means to make, pono means right, and ponopono means doubly right. But Hooponopono is more than that. Hooponopono is also about forgiveness. It's about re-establishing relationships with a new energy. so you can cut out the old stuff, the stuff that no longer serves you, and move on. If you have a relationship that went wrong in the past and you have feelings of revenge or bad feelings about it, bad feelings about the person, Hooponopono is a way of dealing with that. Auntie Morna Simeona, who is of it's her lineage that Joe Vitale learned from, she went around the world teaching Hooponopono. She taught the United Nations. I don't think they did much with it. I think we'd have a lot more peace in the world if they did. But she went around the world and taught Hooponopono to the United Nations and to many others. There are as many ways of practicing Hooponopono as there probably are Hawaiian families in the islands, because Hooponopono, it may be practiced in the way that I teach and in the way that Joe Vitale and Dr. Len Hugh teach. However, in some families, Hooponopono is it's a mediation. It's actually used in Hawaiian prisons as a mediation technique, but it's a way of dealing with family conflict. So you sit the whole family down around the table, and the father of the family, or the mother of the family, a senior person, has everybody say what they need to say in order to resolve the conflict. And at the end of it all, everything's said, everything's done, it's forgiven, it's forgotten, and that's it. So Hooponopono operates at many levels. It's practiced at different levels and in different ways. Energy systems. Huna is all about energy. It's all about bringing energy down from source and then doing stuff with it. It's about how do you create more energy? How do you have more energy? And I love the Hawaiian attitude to this, which is, if you do something and it gives you more energy, do more of it. If you do something and it doesn't give you energy or it depletes your energy, don't do it. Very simple system. The elements. The elements are the building blocks of energy. They're the building blocks of everything, of our physical universe. And in the Huna system, there are 5 elements. In the school that I have learned, if you study in other schools, some other schools have it a little bit different, but in the school that I've learned, we work with 5 elements. So air, fire, water, earth, and something that we call keave, which is its spirit, if you like. The numerology, the Hawaiians have a numerology. So, for example, the number 3 is a number of starting. The number 4 is a number of completion. Dream time, as the Aboriginals have a dream time, so there's a dream time within the Hawaiian system where you chant and chant and chant and chant. And when you chant for long enough, it takes you into almost an out-of-body state. And you can use that out-of-body state, that lucid dreaming state, you can use that to make decisions, to come to realizations, to manifest as well, which leads us on to manifestation. We do a lot in Huna about manifestation, manifesting the life that you want, not just in terms of your spiritual life, but in terms of relationships, in terms of career, in terms of health and fitness, everything. You have the ability to design and create your own life. And that's what manifestation is really about. And within Huna, there are many, many techniques at all different levels to teach you how to manifest. Chanting. Chanting is so important. Chanting raises your vibration. Chanting brings in energy. If you chant, it will definitely raise your energy levels. Chanting, there is a magic in the words. There's a magic in the Hawaiian words, and chanting brings in that magic. Herbs, we don't tend to work with herbs as much, but it is a part of the tradition. Divination, so figuring out what's going on. You can do that through the use of the elements and through the use of the energy. The concept of a guardian spirit, you find that in many traditions. You find it in Native American tradition, you find it in the Western Hermetic tradition, many traditions, this idea of the guardian spirit who we connect with, and the more we build our connection with the guardian spirit, the more the guardian spirit can help us. There was a developed system of astrology, but most of it's being lost. However, we still know the moon was very, very important in Hawaiian. It's still used for planting and fishing and deciding when is the best time to plant, when's the best time to fish, when is the best time to cut your hair, when is the best time to start things, when is the best time to stop things, and much, much more. But we'll move on for now. Let me talk a little bit about the lineage. So the lineage that I learned from is from the Bray family. I mentioned at the beginning our lineage goes back something like 29 generations, and that's 29 generations of the Bray family lineage. The Bray family lineage, this covers teachings around release processes, meditations, philosophy, using energy, and much, much more. Hooponopono, the Hooponopono that I learned, is from the tradition of Mona Simeone. Matt, my teacher, his father, studied with Mona Simeone and brought that into this lineage. Mona Simeone taught Dr. Len Hu, Dr. Len Hu taught Joe Vitale. So there are some differences in the way that I teach and practice Hooponopono from Joe Vitale, because I always get asked this question, is it like what Joe Vitale teaches? Yes, there are similarities and there are differences, and because not all wisdom is in any one school, it doesn't really matter. From the Naope family, George Naope, we have many chants. We also study Teneo-san, the work of Teneo-san's Kumelai. Teneo-san's Kumelai is a very cool woman. She was a kahuna. She lived in New York and she practiced Huna in the modern world. So she didn't go woo on these things. She took the tools that were available and used them. So if she needed to do a ritual and there was no ocean available, she would use the wash basin. She was practical. And we also have a lineage of symbols. Symbols similar, parallel to Reiki, but very different from Reiki. There are 36 symbols in the tradition that we use. They come through a kahuna called Kuaha-ali'i. Kuaha-ali'i was commissioned by the royal family in the 1880s to go around and collect knowledge, because the knowledge, the ancient ways, the old knowledge was disappearing very fast. So he collected this knowledge and put it together in a book, and the book was offered to the James family, because the family who owned the book, the grandmother had a dream, and the dream was that the knowledge should be handed on to the right person. And at the back of this book were these symbols. There are very, very powerful symbols. We can use them for healing, bringing in energy, for cleansing, for protection, for many, many different purposes. So there's a system of symbols as well. And these are some of my teachers. So the lady and gentleman that you can see, the lady is Auntie Bernie. She's the sister of Uncle George. Auntie Bernie, her teachings are very, very practical, very, very, very day-to-day. Auntie Bernie is an expert in the kukui nut. Now, when we put the video back on, you can take a look at my kukui nuts. The kukui in Hawaiian was very, very important, because the nut it's a very rich nut, and it was used to provide oil for cooking. It was used to provide oil for lighting the home, lamps. It was used for healing purposes. I have a drum behind me. Again, you'll see it when I put the video, but when I put the proper video back on. We condition our drums with kukui nut oil. It's great for the skin. It's a fabulous all-round oil. And Auntie Bernie works with the nuts, creates necklaces, and knows all about the nut. Oh, the other thing about kukui. The kukui is also a name for your head, because it's nut-like. Your head is nut-like. But not only is your head nut-like, in the Hawaiian tradition, inside your head is full of light. And one of the meditations that we teach is a meditation on the light, a meditation on what is inside your head, which is well trippy. The gentleman with the moustache, that is Kumu Etua Lopez. Kumu Etua Lopez was a student of Uncle George Nopi, and since the death of Uncle George, he's taken on the mantle of Uncle George. He is a hula master, an extraordinary teacher, and he teaches us chanting, and he teaches us the basics of hula, and he also teaches us drumming as well. And then the chap at the bottom there, that's Matt James, Dr. Matt James, who is my teacher of Huna and has been since 2005. And Matt he's a doctor in clinical psychology, but he also has an NLP and NLP and hypnosis training school, as well as a Huna training school. So this word kahuna comes up again and again. It got really bad press in the 1930s. It came to mean a shaman or a witch doctor of the really bad kind. Now, it doesn't actually necessarily mean that at all, but it became associated with black magic and bad practices. And when you look at what it means, that is so far from what a kahuna might be. So ka means there, or it means light. Huna, the concealed wisdom, the secret, if you like. Kahu, a keeper. Na, calmness. Basically, the kahuna is the keeper of the hidden wisdom, and it brings in the light, it brings in calmness and centeredness. Nowadays, there are probably not many people around who we would call practicing kahunas. It is said by some that the last practicing kahuna was Daddy Bray, who was in our lineage. He was living in Kona in the 1950s and was arrested for chanting Hawaiian chants in the marketplace. Daddy Bray was also a hula teacher. Many of the Huna teachers also had a connection with hula, and Daddy Bray taught young children. In fact, there's a story that goes that the missionaries were disapproving of the hula because they said it was too sexual. If you've seen the hula, you'll see that there's a waving of the hips that goes on. And Daddy Bray said, "Let me bring you some of my dancers and I will prove to you that the hula is not sexual." So the missionaries accepted this idea because they couldn't see how he could possibly get out of it. And what Daddy Bray did was he got together some of his 5-year-old, 6-year-old girls and had them dance, and the story goes that he had them do hip rotation after hip rotation after hip rotation. And anybody who says that a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old is sexual, well, they've got to be having a laugh, basically. So Daddy Bray won that point. Different types of kahuna. Kahuna, at one level, kahuna just means a PhD, a specialist or an expert. So there were many different types. There were kahunas of canoe building, there were kahunas of agriculture, there was the kahuna of Lau Kaheo, which was psychology and faith healing, Lau Lapalau, which is the herbal medicine. Now our mystical initiators, Kilo Kilo, prediction and divination, could be looking at clouds and predicting what was coming by looking at the clouds. Many different types of kahuna. Oh, and kahunas of surfing as well, because the Hawaiians invented surfing. So let's get more into the real philosophy, the psychology of Huna. So in Huna we have 3 cells and 4 bodies. From a Huna perspective, we have the higher self, also known as the Alma Kua. The Alma Kua is the guardian spirit, and all the Hawaiian families have an Alma Kua, which is typically represented by an animal like an owl. The Alma Kua is the higher self, it's the guardian spirit. It stands in relation, in a parental relationship to our conscious mind, that's the CM there, and our unconscious mind. The conscious mind in the Hawaiian tradition does not have direct connection with the higher self. If you look, you'll see the line joining the higher self to the unconscious mind and the conscious mind to the unconscious mind. The higher self and the conscious mind don't actually talk directly. When the higher self wants to communicate with us, it communicates with the unconscious mind, the UCM, known in Hawaiian as unihipili, which also means agavas hopa. So the unconscious mind is where we get the messages from the higher self. Now, messages may come in as an intuition. They may come in dreams. They often do come in dreams, because the unconscious mind thinks in symbols and representations. So the higher self will send us a dream, and the unconscious mind then presents the dream to the conscious mind, which has to interpret it. And in fact, in the classes that we teach in Hawaii, one of the things we teach is dream interpretation. Dream interpretation is an incredibly powerful tool for personal development, for manifestation, for spiritual connectiveness. So we teach that. So the higher self, the Aumakua, the conscious mind, which is very much the level of the mental, and the unconscious mind, which is very much the level of the emotions. So let's look at the four bodies, because you'll see the parallels. The four bodies: we have the spiritual body which houses the higher self. We have the mental body, which houses the conscious mind. And we have the emotional body, which houses the unconscious mind. And the whole is contained in the physical body at the bottom. And you may, I think the physical body may be blocked out by a message on the screen from Google. But the one on the bottom is the physical body. So our physical bodies, our hale, our house, our physical body, contains all the rest. It contains the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional. And there's no separation between them. We kind of identify them separately for convenience, but in actuality, there is no separation between them. It's all one. And I'm just going to take a sip of water before I talk about Huna's original name. So the original name of Huna was Ho'omana. Ho'omana, ho'o means to make. So Hooponopono means to make ponopono. Ho'omana means to make mana. Mana is life force energy. So Ho'omana means to make life force energy, which is effectively empowerment. So in ancient times, what we would have been talking about, what we would call what I'm talking about now, would be Ho'omana. It would be making life force energy. So let's look at the different levels of energy, Ho'omana. The Hawaiians believe that there are different levels of energy. The lowest, most concrete level of energy is mana. It's solid, it's physical, and it's at the level of the unconscious mind. It's lowest in the vibration. Mana is to do with the conscious mind, but mana, it has a higher level of vibration, a higher frequency. It's that bit more abstract. Mana loa means stretched out. So mana loa, the highest form, it is at the highest vibration, and it's the most abstract. Think about it. If you have a thought, it comes in, usually it comes in as a spark, it comes in a very high frequency, abstract way. And gradually, as you process it through the vehicle of the conscious mind, you start to think about it. It starts to take on form. It starts to take on a meaning. It's still abstract, but you're beginning to have some clarity. As you bring the energy down into the physical level, as whatever it is that you've created, that you've envisaged, whether it's a new house, or whether it's a relationship, or whether it's a much healthier body, as it comes down into the physical, it's a much lower frequency, and it's much more physical and obvious. It's much more what we might call real. So those are the three particular levels of energy that we're interested in. And one of our lessons is learning how to bring in that higher level energy from source and bring it in through manifestation and turn it into something that manifests on the physical plane. And we teach that in Hawaii. So the practice of Huna, some of the questions that sometimes come up is, is it religion or is it spirituality? As I said at the beginning, Huna very much exists in parallel or alongside other traditions, other spiritual traditions. You can be a Christian and you can be a Huna practitioner. You can be any religion and be a Huna practitioner, or you may be of no religion whatsoever and be a Huna practitioner. But Huna is very much concerned with the spiritual, and it's very personal. Because not all wisdom is in your school, you can work with Huna in many different ways. It brings in psychology, it brings in the healing arts. I talked earlier about the healing on the emotional level, the importance of healing on the emotional level, the importance of healing the black bags. Because as we heal on the emotional level, so we start to heal on the physical level. And the more you bring in the spiritual and the mental and the emotional, the more total the healing, and it trickles down to the physical. As I said earlier, it does include energy work, and it honors religious practices, it honors agnosticism, it honors atheism, it honors all belief systems. So, now, let's get into some practical things. And the first practical thing that I want to teach you is ha breathing. Now, ha breathing is very important to the Hawaiians. Breathing is very important to the Hawaiians. Hawaiians breathe before they speak or before they chant or before they do anything important. It's said that when there's an expression in Hawaiian, a slang expression, haole. Haole means, I suppose, white guy, non-local. And it is said that this term came because when Captain Cook and his merry men showed up on the island of Hawaii, because Big Island is actually the island of Hawaii. There's 7 islands in the Hawaiian archipelago, and one of them is called Hawaii. It's very confusing. So when Captain Cook and his merry men showed up, the Hawaiians noticed that they never seemed to breathe. The Hawaiians would take a breath before they spoke, especially speaking to strangers. But these people from a long way away, these white folks from abroad, they never breathed. They just spoke. Ha means breath, ole means no. So they were no breaths. So the name haole stuck. So what is ha breathing? Well, it's breathing. That's good. And it's a particular kind of breathing. So with ha breathing, you're breathing in through your nose and you're breathing out through your mouth. And the ratio is 1 to 2. So the out breath is twice as long as the in breath. What ha breathing does, why ha breathing is so useful, is when you ha breathe, you can do it for a while or you can just do it for a couple of breaths. It brings you into the present moment. If being in the present is something that you struggle with, ha breathing will bring you back into the present. If mindfulness is something that you're working on, ha breathing can help you with mindfulness. I use ha breathing, I do it in the morning before I get up, just to raise my energy, to bring myself into consciousness, to make myself present with the day and what's going to be going on in the day. Sometimes I'll use ha breathing to calm myself down. I ha breathe before I chant, and I always ha breathe before I meditate. Because the other thing that ha breathing does is it cleanses us. It using the breath, using the oxygen, bringing in the oxygen to really clean the system before you meditate. So I'm going to teach you how to do this. And for the moment, in order to do this, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and put myself back on. There I am. Okay, so here's what you do. Breathing in through the nose. And by the way, don't do this too fast. I once taught this to a load of engineers, and I set the pace a little fast and realized my mistake rather quickly because they started to hyperventilate. When you're doing this, you have to set yourself a decent pace. So let's go at something like this. Now, what sometimes happens when people are breathing, they may start to feel a bit lightheaded, or they may start to feel spacey. That's because we're not used to doing this. If you do feel lightheaded or spacey, the trick is to really concentrate on bringing that breath right down, right into your solar plexus, really bringing it in, using your lungs. For many of us, we don't normally breathe that deeply, and our bodies just aren't used to it. So practice, allow it to happen. And I really encourage you, if you are a meditator, use it before you meditate. It just brings in a sense of calm, a sense of peace. If you are doing something, about to do something, about to speak, you're thinking of something to say, rather than going and tensing up in the way that we tend to do, and just relax, so that when you say what you need to say, you say it feeling relaxed and calm, malie. That's what heart breathing can do for you. So, the next thing that I'm going to teach you is a meditation. It's called Hakala, and it's the walking meditation of the kahunas. Many meditations that you learn, you have to do sitting, and you may do it in a darkened room or whatever, but you're doing it sitting down. Hakala, you walk around, you can do it anywhere, you can do it out on the streets. Hakala is absolutely brilliant. One of the things that I love about Hakala is that it's very, very trippy. If you're outside, you're practicing this meditation, you suddenly find that the trees seem to be walking along, which is rather magical. So I like Hakala because it's active, it's not just sitting down, it's very trippy, it really gives you connection, and it also, because it uses peripheral vision, I'll explain how it works in a minute, it also gives you a really heightened awareness of what's going on. You're really aware of what's going on, who's around you. You have a much better sense of where you are in time, in space, in place, and in the moment. And you have a much better sense of who's with you. And you have a much stronger connection with the aina, with the world around you, and with yourself. So, I'm going to teach you how to do this. And I'm just going to take us back to the slides, because I've got a little slide which I think explains it better than words can. So bear with me a second. Share that. And I'll show you the little slide. Oops. Oh dear. Technology sometimes gets the better of me. Ha! There we are. There we go. So, Hakala. The idea with Hakala is that we have many different types of vision, but we have foveal vision. Foveal vision is when you're looking absolutely dead straight forward. You're looking straight on, and it's tunnel vision. It's very hard-edged. The other kind of vision that we can use is peripheral vision. Now, peripheral vision is when you're out to the side, and peripheral vision is much less distinct. It's much softer and expanding your vision around you. Foveal vision connects you into your sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is the part of your nervous system. It's active. It's very much involved with the fight or flight. So foveal vision is very much associated with fight or flight, and it can be associated with stress. Peripheral vision is heightened awareness. In fact, they teach peripheral vision on advanced driving courses, because when you're in peripheral vision, your awareness is so much greater. Peripheral vision, it's looser, it's fuzzier, and yet at the same time, you're so much more aware. Peripheral vision taps into the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the system that enables us to relax. It's that. When you're in peripheral vision, it's very difficult to feel tense, uptight, negative, doubting yourself, or any of that other rubbish that tends to come into our mind when we're in foveal vision. So using Hakalao allows you to access a calmness that we don't always have in our lives, allows us to be much more aware. So how you do it? So what you do is find a spot on the wall, any spot, above the level of your eye line, and look at that spot on the wall. And as you look at the spot, really focus in on the spot, really focus in it, go very foveal, very focusing in. And as you focus in, now allow your eyes to start to relax. Allow your eyes to start to imagine as if you were bringing your vision right the way round the sides, as far out. And one way of doing this is to wiggle. It's quite fun. I teach this to teenagers, and they absolutely love it. I call the wraparound sunglasses technique. So what you do is put your hands out to the side so you can just see them, looking forward, eyes relaxed, and just see them. Start to wiggle your fingers and bring your hands backwards, slowly, but this is quite difficult to do with the screen. Bring your hands slowly backwards until they're just in your periphery, and relaxing your eyes even more and more and more. Start to see how far back you can take your fingers, still be wiggling, and still be aware of them in your periphery. And notice how your vision has started to relax and expand outwards. You'll see things in the periphery that you couldn't see before. You'll notice things if there's anybody moving in the room. Or as I say, if you're walking down an avenue of trees, you may notice that the trees start to walk with you, which is very cool indeed. So if you want a technique, if you want to meditate when you're out and about, if you're a walker, even if you're a jogger, and you want to meditate while you're walking or jogging, use this technique of going into the periphery, using your peripheral vision to really become in tune with your surroundings and present in the moment. Hakalao is powerful. It's extremely powerful, and it does take a little bit of practice. It's quite fun if you're talking to somebody else and you're wanting to practice Hakalao, because this is one of the questions that often comes up. People say, well, I'm interested and I want to practice Hakalao. I love being in peripheral vision. I love the sense of relaxation that it gives me. But what do I do when I'm talking to someone? Well, what you do when you're talking to someone is just focus on their third eye, just above the nose, and just look at that and allow yourself to go into peripheral vision. You will look as though you're looking into their eyes. You will look as though you're looking at them. Again, the kids love doing this, and they're really good at it. One of the other advantages of Hakalao that I haven't talked about is Hakalao allows you to develop your learning. When you're relaxed in that way, when you're in that relaxed state, your learning is so much greater. So if you have kids, you can teach it to your kids. If you're studying yourself, putting yourself into that vision. When you're reading your book, allow yourself, just go into the relaxed peripheral vision. Your learning will be so much greater. We've taught this to kids over the years, and we've seen their grades, their marks go up substantially just by using this. Because when they're foveal, they're concentrating so hard, they're tense, and it just doesn't sink in the same way as it does when you're relaxed. So that's 2 techniques that I hope that you've enjoyed. Now, one of the questions that people have said to me is, well, okay, Jane, you're going to do this webinar, and what next? So I'd like to talk a little bit about what next, other things that you can do, other resources. So one of the resources is my website, and my website is drjanelewis.com. drjanelewis.com. And at drjanelewis.com there is a page called Huna. And on the page Huna, I'm posting news and information about events. I'm going to run a follow-up webinar to this one on the 5th of August, where I'm going to delve a little bit deeper. I'll talk more about Hooponopono, I'll talk more about the release techniques and some of the other things that I've really just touched on today. If you fancy a trip to Hawaii, you want to spend 10 days in Hawaii, then go to huna.com and learn about the 10-day workshop that is offered. It's a wonderful workshop. I teach there, so if you enjoy listening to me, you can come and see me there. And the other thing that I'm going to be doing, and I'll be putting all this on the Facebook page, Dr. Jane Lewis, and I'll also be putting it on LinkedIn and on the website. I'm going to be running a live event in the UK, in London, on the 30th and 31st of August. It'll be an introduction. You will learn the processes. You'll learn how to do Hooponopono. You'll learn how to do the emotional release, the spiritual emotional release techniques. You'll learn how to do some meditation, the meditation on the light, which I haven't spoken about today. So you'll learn a number of different techniques, different processes, and I know from students I've had in the past, it's a really, really powerful, transformational weekend. So if that's something of interest to you, just get in touch. You can get in touch via the website. You can get in touch via Facebook, Dr. Jane Lewis. You can get in touch via LinkedIn, Jane P. Lewis. And thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to connecting with you, talking to you very soon. And it's been an honor and a pleasure to spend this time with you this evening. Thank you.